News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Alexis Christoforous. Here are the stories we're following today.
Alexis, we are seeing a relief rally in markets on the prospect of the U.S. ending the war with Iran soon. President Trump says he could see the conflict ending in 2 to 3 weeks as it enters its second month.
I had one goal. They will have no nuclear weapon. And that goal has been attained. They will not have nuclear weapons. But we're finishing the job. And I think within maybe 2 weeks, maybe a couple of days longer to do the job.
In remarks from the Oval Office heard live on Bloomberg Radio, President Trump said it's still possible Iran reaches a deal in that time frame. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the U.S. has had 4 objectives: to destroy Iran's offensive missiles, destroy its missile production, destroy its navy, and assure it never has a nuclear weapon.
We are on or ahead of schedule on each of those 4 objectives, and we can see the finish line. It's not today, it's not tomorrow, but it is coming. We are going to get to the point where our military will have achieved all of its objectives in this mission, and they're doing so with extraordinary efficiency.
Secretary of State Rubio made those comments on Fox News.
But there's one goal that the Trump administration is leaving unsaid, as we hear from Bloomberg Middle East correspondent Jumana Bersetchi in Dubai.
There was no real objective linked to the reopening of the Strait. And in fact, when he was asked about it, he said that they can leave it up to other people and pointed to other countries, such as the likes of China, who obviously benefit from the lion's share of the energy products that pass through the Strait, and that it would sort of be something that can be dealt with at a later stage. So not an explicit objective per se anymore.
Bloomberg's Jumana Bersetchi reports President Trump has expressed frustration with U.S. allies for not helping reopen the Strait. This morning, the president told the UK's Telegraph newspaper he's strongly considering pulling the U.S. out of NATO after it failed to join the war, telling the paper it's, quote, beyond consideration. In the meantime, Iran continues to launch attacks, including at an oil tanker off Qatar and cruise missiles targeting the United Arab Emirates. And a third U.S. carrier group, the USS George W. Bush, is on its way to the Middle East. The White House says President Trump will deliver a primetime address on the war tonight. That's set for 9 p.m. Wall Street time. You could hear it live here on Bloomberg Radio or watch on Bloomberg Television and the Bloomberg Business app.
Well, Alexis, oil is falling on the latest war developments, even as the Strait of Hormuz remains largely closed. Right now, Brent is down 1.4%, trading at 102.49 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate's at 99.34. Stephen Stepchinsky leads Bloomberg's team covering energy in Asia.
There is a new risk premium for oil going through the Middle East and gas going through the Middle East that is going to have to be sort of figured out going forward. Because even if everything were to end, if the Strait of Hormuz were to open, if all of the infrastructure were to be repaired, there is still going to be fears in the back of the minds of traders, buyers, even sellers as to how safe everything is going forward. What are the chances that something could flare up again? What are the chances of insurance rates increasing as well?
Bloomberg's Stephen Stepchinsky says while Brent dipped under $100 a barrel, it is still about 37% higher than before the war began.
And Nathan, we are seeing stocks rally around the world this morning on optimism. The war will end. Stocks in Japan soared more than 5%. The Euro Stoxx 50 is up more than 2%. And this follows yesterday's Wall Street rally, which saw the S&P 500 climb 2.9%. The NASDAQ surged 3.8%. Lauren Sanfilippo is a senior investment strategist at Bank of America.
I think this is a little bit of a relief rally here. Now it's headline to headline, if this is really all clear. But I think this at least gives us a sense of how the markets would react when we really do find the end to this.
Bank of America senior investment strategist Lauren Sanfilippo. Despite yesterday's rally, the S&P 500 still fell 4.6% in the first quarter, while the NASDAQ dropped more than 7%. Right now, we've got S&P futures up, Nathan, about 0.4%.
Back in Washington, Alexis, the Supreme Court is set to hear arguments this morning over the legality of President Trump's executive order that ends automatic citizenship for children born to parents who are in the U.S. on a temporary visa or illegally. Bloomberg's Amy Morris reports from the nation's capital.
President Trump's executive order stipulates the government will no longer recognize birthright citizenship for children born to undocumented immigrants. The move upends more than a century of legal precedent. The case, Trump versus Barbara, tests a long-settled interpretation of the Constitution that has governed citizenship for generations. The ACLU arguing that the executive order violates the 14th Amendment, the Trump administration arguing that jurisdiction refers to political allegiance. A final decision by the Supreme Supreme Court is expected in late June or early July. In Washington, Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
Thanks, Amy. President Trump says he will attend those Supreme Court hearings this morning. In another development, the president has signed an executive order intended to make it harder for voters to cast mail-in ballots. That's a practice used by millions of Americans. The order requires the Homeland Security Secretary to prepare a list of U.S. citizens eligible to vote in each state and the Postal Service to only send absentee ballots to voters on the approved list.
The cheating on mail-in voting is legendary. It's horrible what's gone on. And it's very clearly covered, very, very clearly. So I think this will help a lot with elections. We'd like to have voter ID. We'd like to have proof of citizenship, and that'll be another subject for another time.
The move is likely to draw legal challenges, with legal experts saying President Trump has virtually no authority to outlaw voting by mail himself without a change in law. And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Alexis Christoforous.
I'm Nathan Hager, and this is Bloomberg.